through the hourglass. These are the songs of our lives.
Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Songs of Our Lives. I'm Brad Rose. I am an artist, a composer, a writer, the founder of Foxy, Digitalis, and somebody who thinks about music and sound far more than is healthy. Each week I invite on a guest to talk about the songs and the music that has meant a lot to them and left its mark. Previous guests include Tony Rolando, Jeff Parker, Alan Licht, Jason Woodbury, Sarah Devacci, Darius Jones, Wendy Eisenberg. I don't know, the list goes on and on. This week, I am thrilled to have the one, the only Sarah Belle Reid. She is so many things. She's a composer. She's an educator, a performer, an improviser. She does so much cool stuff. And one of the things that maybe I don't know what she's best known for, but that she's really known for is teaching synthesis and sound online. And really just helping people find their own way through creating their own music and finding their own expression through sound, which is a thing that is near and dear to my heart. She also has a new album out that just came out with the one, the only, the legend himself, Vinny Golia, called Accidental Ornithology. It's on Infrequent Seams, and it's such a fun record. It's very whimsical, but very... It's I don't know. It's kind of, I don't want to say technical, but it's just, I don't know. It's a hell of a record. And I mean, if you know Sarah's work, you know Vinny's work, that's probably not a surprise. But it's a lot of fun. There's just a certain element to it that is just fun and whimsical. And again, right in my heart. And she's got a new round of her learning sound and synthesis online course starting soon. And just, I don't know, man. Sarah's awesome. So, took us a while to get this one in the books, on tape, but it was a whole hell of a lot of fun, and I hope you all enjoy it. My guest today is a musician, a composer, a performer, an educator, an improviser, a synthesist. Is that a thing? I don't know. It's Sarah Belle Reid. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
I think if that title applies to anybody, I think it could apply to you, but that's...
Yeah. I think a synthesist is a thing, although it's hard to say.
It is.
Synthesist.
It's a cool word, anyway. So, before we get into all the songs, you have a new album coming out, I guess it's actually this Friday, as we record this, called Accidental Ornithology, with the great Vinny Golia. It's on Infrequent Seams. I should mention that. I'm curious, how did you meet and come to work with Vinny?
At Cal Arts. He was originally one of my teachers there. We had just a great relationship studying with Vinny. Hey, Vinny, if you're listening to this, I'm going to flatter you, so get ready. Studying with Vinny was great. He was just always so, supportive and willing to just jump in and try things. And we would improvise a lot, and we would talk a lot about graphic notation and weird ways of thinking about sound. And it was great. And then after I finished, studying with him there, we just sort of kept playing together and played some shows. And he was always really open to being one of the first people to try playing my experiments with alternate notation. So I'd bring them to him, and I knew he would always take them really seriously.
That's
and
awesome.
That was really important. And then, we just kind of kept it, became friends.
Yeah. He's, I interviewed him for a different podcast I used to do, but my favorite thing was just all the stuff behind. He was in a studio, and it's just like this wonderland of
walls of gongs.
Yeah, it was incredible. I could have talked to him about, I don't know anything about gongs, but I could have talked to him about gongs for hours because, I don't know. Vinny is great. So the concept of it, this idea of music inspired by imaginary birds, which is like right in my heart. Oh my gosh. How'd that come about? Because I love it.
So we were, honestly, the first intention behind the project was just to play together and make a record together. And we just wanted to kind of see what happened. The morning, I think it was the morning of the session, we were sitting in Vinny's kitchen chatting and having coffee, and he kept pointing out the window and pointing out these, Vinny's kind of a jokester. Like he's a sweet guy. He's got a great sense of humor. He would point out the window and be like, Sarah, you see that? And then I swear he was making things up. He'd be like, that's the rare desert, prickly fowl or something. And I was like, Vinny, what are you talking about? And he had this bird book right there, right on his kitchen counter. So we opened it up and looked, and we were kind of talking about birds. And that just sort of framed the day.
That's amazing. The like song titles, bird names are fabulous.
Thanks. Yeah, it was a very fun process to imagine some of these birds. And we actually wrote, there's descriptions for every single bird instead of standard liner notes.
Oh, wow.
But you have to get the record. I realized like those aren't available anywhere, but there's this poster that the amazing artist Marta made. It's like a big fold out poster. And if you look, you might need a magnifying glass, but if you look really closely, you can actually read descriptions of every single bird as they associate with the different tracks. So things like their weird mating rituals and their bird song and their plumage and all kinds of
that's so cool,
strange things. Yeah.
Was that all stuff you guys came up with like after the fact? Or,
yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it wasn't like, all right, we're going to invent this bird and then now we're going to make Okay.
No, it wasn't. It was more in response to what came out after listening to the session. So the process of making the music was very much like we sat down, we set up, we just played, and it just rolled for hours. And then afterward, we were like, okay, here are the things that we want to put on the record. And then, this one sounds like a red-crested flubog, I think. Don't you?
Yeah. I think that's like one of the things I talk about a lot and think about a lot. So, my background is I've been doing this for a long, long time. And a lot of quote unquote experimental music it's like very serious and I'm all for that. But like joy and whimsy and kind of like silliness, it's like those are like important emotions and things too. And so I get all really excited when music like this kind of goes there and it isn't afraid to be fun because it should be fun.
I couldn't agree more. And I think Vinny pulls that out of me in a way that I really appreciate because he's just so unpredictable. Like one moment he'll pick up, he'll be playing this like really intense thing on some big saxophone. And the next minute you didn't even notice, but he's picked up his piccolo and he's like making gremlin noises through the piccolo. And it's just, you have no choice but to, you roll with it. And it's great. I love it.
Yeah, that's awesome. Well, okay, so I could talk about this record for a long time because I really, really like it, and you're gonna make me. I'm gonna get one of the physical copies because I got to see this poster. That sounds so cool. But also, I would be remiss if I didn't mention your, I guess, the learning sound and synthesis course, your electroacoustic, like all the stuff you do, like your quote unquote day job. You've got a new session. I don't know the right words here of your learning sound and synthesis. That is hard to say. Starting soon. Yes,
that's right. In mid-February, so a few weeks from now.
And I've done the free course thing because I got so my background. Like I've been doing this stuff for a long time, for 30 years, but I just a year-ish ago, started building my first modular system. Like I was always like, nope, I don't want to do that. I'm not going. I was like, because I knew exactly what would happen as soon as I did. It was like, I'm broke now. But and so like now I have like 6 HP left in my case, and I'm like, okay, what am I going to do? Or my main case. I have anyway. And your thing, you've got me thinking about wave shapers now, actually.
Yeah. Ooh.
I know. I'm like, maybe that's what I need. Anyway, I don't know. I don't have a question here. I just wanted to mention those things.
Yeah. I mean, it's a big part of what I do, I guess. It's just online class about synthesis and sound design and electronic music. And it does focus on, modular synth technique and fundamentals, but it's definitely not just a class for people who have Eurorack systems or want to play modular systems. I just really believe in like how helpful it is to learn modular synth concepts to learn synthesis. So there's a lot of people in the class who are using virtual plugins or keyboard synths or whatever they might be using, not necessarily in the modular hardware realm. But they're still able to kind of learn the techniques and learn the concepts and then use them in whatever kind of music they want to make. It's a lot of fun.
Yeah. Well, one of the things I really, you posted a thing, I don't know, in the last, I don't know, time, it could have been a week ago or it could have been a month ago. But talking about, the difference between like practicing techniques and like that and versus just playing with your instrument. And I really like what you were saying about finding ways to sort of mix the two. Yeah. That resonated for like, cause that's like a thing I've been doing this for 30 years and it's still like a fight I'm having with my, like, and yeah, I just wanted to, again, I don't have a question here. I just wanted to say, like, I really appreciated you talking about that.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, it's interesting because it's, compared to acoustic instruments, modular synths, electronic instruments, they're all really new, right? And there's no like formal codified way of using them, which I think is great. That's really exciting because we can just play and follow our sound and do what we want. But then it is this challenge or this interesting kind of conversation that comes up around how do you learn them? Like, how do you rehearse? How do you practice? There's no scales, there's no etudes. So for me, and a big emphasis of this class is about listening. It's about like learning how sound works on a really fundamental level, learning how we hear it and how we perceive it, and then getting really good at listening and not just hearing, but like listening, breaking sound down, understanding why does it make you feel the way it makes you feel? What's the texture of the sound? All of these different things. And then when you get really clear on that and you learn the basic building blocks of synthesis, then you can really play because now you can like imagine something or hear a bird, speaking of birds, and like break it down into all of its little pieces, the rough parts, the inharmonicity, the pitch changes, and then you can build it from scratch. And that's so exciting. Like, that's why I get jazzed up, like really excited about it.
You can invent like all your own bird species.
Exactly. Now you're getting it.
Right. Yeah, no, it's fun. I had a friend of mine. This was last week or over the weekend, they're getting into starting a sound practice and like they're a visual artist. They do sculpture and stuff. And they asked me, they're like, well, what like is the one piece of advice like you can give me? And I was like, the biggest part of your practice, especially as is listening, just listening. And again, understanding what sounds make you feel what ways, what sound, like all these, it's like, then you can, because they're like, I don't know what I really want to do. It's like, you'll figure it out and there's no wrong answers, but like, understanding why certain sounds make you evoke certain things. Exactly. That's how I figure out how to make what I want to make.
That's right. I love that. And just, sorry, I know you probably want to move on, but this is really important to me. So I'm going to say, just like trust the sounds that you love. Like, even if it's not, I'm a great example of like a lot of the sounds that I love aren't necessarily normal or loved or appreciated by the masses. And it took me a little while to come around to that, but especially those of you who are musicians and are like trying to kind of figure out what you want to do or like develop your practice, like that's the answer. The sounds that light you up or are just like, woo, even if they're not being done by other people, like follow them, trust it.
Yeah. I mean, I did one of these with Leah Cole last year and we had this moment of, we both we were talking about the sound of a refrigerator hum and how it's one of our favorite sounds in the world. We were both like, you too? Oh my God. Because it's like one of those sounds that everyone's like, what? Like, no, I love it. So, and yeah, go for it. Go with it. So
Exactly.
Anyway, okay, I could go on about this forever and no one wants to hear that. But we're going to get into all the songs and we're going to start, as we always do, with what is the first song that you remember?
So I'm going to have more than one answer for a lot of these, and I'm just going to apologize in advance. But the first song that I actually remember, I don't know if this counts, but my mom like invented or like wrote this little melody this little lullaby she used to sing, and it was just like one word and like one. I don't really want to sing it. I feel like it's a little too personal, but it was like really simple. It was like 3 notes and one word, and she would just like sing it to me as a baby, and that is so deeply ingrained into my early music memories. It was incredible. But the other answer that's more of a song that other people could maybe know is, I think it's called I Need Your Lovin'. It's a Taj Mahal.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. I need your love. Na, 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 na.
I think that's, I think
that's it.
Or Need Your Lovin' or something. Yeah.
And like I think it was my dad used to be a really big Taj Mahal fan, or maybe still is, but it was like the song that would go on at dinner time, like meal prep time, or meal cleanup time. And it was always the like, come on, we're all going to dance around and we're going to like do dishes.
Yeah. If it's the song I'm thinking of, that makes sense. Cause it's got, it's a song that kind of makes you want to get up and move,
yeah.
You know? So,
And I think there's this refrain of like, this kind of like, wah, 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 wah. I don't know if it's a voice or a horn, but like everyone would always like do that.
Was there like always music like in the house? Did your parents like listen to a lot of music and stuff?
Yeah, there always was. Like definitely the kitchen was a central place for music, and it was usually around obviously, meal prep time or cleanup. There was always something going on. Also, I just grew up like my parents played. They were never professional musicians, but they would play. My dad played fiddle. My mom used to play piano, and we had a piano in the house. So it was just kind of a big part of growing up, which was really great.
Yeah, that's awesome. My daughter is learning cello right now, and it's basically like the greatest thing in my life. And I have to be somebody who is obsessed with music and sound, I'm just like hands off. Hey, I have no idea how to play a cello. I don't know anything about it. Which is cool for her because she gets to be the expert. But
yeah,
just sitting and being in the other room, hearing her practice and stuff, it's the best. Okay, well, what's a song that it either makes you cry, or if it doesn't actually make you cry, it makes you kind of feel that kind of way?
I would say it's a standard, I think. So the song How Deep is the Ocean?
Mm-hmm.
There's a particular version. So this was a song this is very personal, but this was a song that was sung at my wedding by a couple of my best friends.
Oh, man.
And it had not made me, I always loved it. I have a soft spot for that kind of music, just like, I think also because I grew up listening to it in the house, like old, like crooner kind of old jazz standards, all that kind of stuff. But it was one of those moments where you're like, I've got this together. I'm doing okay. I'm all right. I can handle this. And then as soon as it was my two of my best friends, an amazing singer and a bass player.
Oh, wow.
And they're just incredible people. And they played literally one note on bass, like boom. And then she sang, like, she said the word like how, and I like lost everything. I was like, game over. Yeah. And now I can't hear it without just I can't even talk about it. Like right now, I'm just like, oh. So anyway, yeah, man. It's powerful.
It is. Oh yeah. God, there's a lot of really good versions out there.
There are.
As I was digging through it yesterday, and there's just a lot of, I don't know.
The one that I used to listen to as a younger person was there was a record that was put out by Doc Cheatham and Nicholas Payton, two trumpet players. Are you familiar with them? And I think,
know who Doc is. But I haven't heard,
and I think when the album was made, Doc Cheetah might have been like 91 years old, and Nicholas Payton might have been like 23,
that's really
25.
awesome.
So it was like a really cool collaboration, and they were both singing and they were both playing. And I thought, as a young trumpet student, because I'm a trumpet player before I went into the modular synth world and still am, that was, I thought it was so cool.
Yeah, that is really cool. Oh, that makes me want to, I'm going to have to go look for that record and listen to it, because that sounds really cool. I love the, like, generational.
Me too.
thing.
Yeah.
That's really, yeah. Okay, well, what's on the other side of that? What's a song that will put you in a better mood?
Okay, this one was actually really hard for me to answer. Because like a lot of songs, can I say a lot of songs?
You can say whatever you want.
A lot of songs. Music in general makes me really, because even the one that makes me cry puts me in a better mood in a way, right? Because it's just like feelings are nice.
Yeah, right.
feelings. That's nice.
Yeah.
So like if I'm feeling kind of bummed out or stressed or whatever, like the thing that I do, that I go to these days, is I just play music. Like that's my ultimate, makes me feel better.
I'm 100% the same way.
Yeah. And it doesn't have to be anything in particular. Like I'll pick up my trumpet and improvise for a few minutes, or I'll sit down at, a synth, or I'll sing, or just like anything like that. And I instantly am like, oh yeah, I remember why I do what I do. And like, I remember the things I love. Like it reconnects me and kind of grounds me to, you know, what matters.
Yeah, no, whenever that, because I think you kind of said that when you sent me your list, and the other day, I don't know what day it was. This is like, I sound like I'm really bad memory problems, but I don't. It's been a long week.
What is time?
The other day, like I was having a really just rotten day, and I just went in my studio and just turned on a synth and just started like twisting knobs and like, and it was like, oh yeah, okay, it's gonna be okay.
Yeah,
like, that's become like the thing that puts that can turn my mood around, because it's life affirming, and for me anyway.
Yeah, exactly. And there's something about, I don't know, it gets me out of my head and into my heart and body and ears. And like, that's such a beautiful thing to just be like, okay, let's just stop the thinking for a second and just feel and listen again, to go back to listening, like.
That's a really good point. Yeah, it really does. It gets me out of my head, because my head can be a real, that's where all the problems happen.
One of the most joyful, I just thought of this. I did not mention this earlier, but I recently went to, have you heard of the Tank in Colorado? I recently went there for a friend's birthday to celebrate. It was my friend Todd Barton. He was having a milestone birthday of some kind. I can't remember exactly what it was, 70 or something, 75. And he was like, all I want to do is go to the Tank with some friends and make music for a weekend. And we're like, hell yeah, that sounds great. And one of the most joyful like music making moments I've had in recent history was in that there. Like there was just this moment where everyone stopped. We all put down our instruments and everyone just started singing. Oh, wow. And it was like this. So the Tank, for those of you who don't know, it's this like old disused water, or I don't know if it's a water tank. Yeah, some big metal thing. And it's got this crazy natural reverb, like many, many, many seconds.
Yeah. And
it's incredible. And so there's the sound of like a pin drop echoes like this enormous event. And so when you sing, you can just hear so many like, micro nuances and fluctuations. And like a room of people all doing this together was so powerful.
I bet.
I feel like it was months ago, and I still feel like I'm riding that wave.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
That's so cool. Yeah. One of my, I don't know, I don't really have a 5-year plan, but like in the next X amount of years, one of my goals is to go to the Tank and make a record. So
definitely recommend it. Yeah. It's a special thing.
No, that's a great answer. I probably relate to that more than I relate to any song anybody's ever seen. Okay, well, everyone's favorite question. What is objectively the best song of all time?
Okay, so we were supposed to do this podcast episode like months ago, and I procrastinated in part because I couldn't come up with an answer to this.
We've had everything from like classical pieces to someone picked the Golden Girls theme song. So
I love that.
There's no wrong answers here.
Yeah. This just goes against my like. So I think I did come up with a lot of things, and then I went back and forth. But the thing that kept seeming to stick for some reason was a classical piece, was Mahler's Fifth Symphony. And that, I don't know if that's weird to say, but I just think do you know this piece?
Yeah, I don't know it super well. I've heard it multiple times. And then as soon as I listened to it again, I was like, oh yeah, I know this piece.
Yeah.
It opens with that trumpet solo.
It opens with the trumpet thing. So I know in a way it's kind of like, oh yeah, of course you love that. You're a trumpet player. But actually I hated that. I mean, that was like, I love it so much despite having to play that opening excerpt, for years and years and years at orchestral auditions.
I think that speaks to the power of it, probably. Like,
right. I don't know. There's something, when I was a music student and I was studying all of this music. So I was I was doing classical trumpet, orchestral trumpet playing. That was what I did in school early on. Everything was like really serious. You were saying earlier about how a lot of experimental music and electronic music is really serious, but I think music in general is often very serious. And like, it was all about rules and getting it right and playing in tune and playing in time. And then the first time that I heard this symphony, I remember being like totally shocked by how much personality kind of came through of like the composer. I felt like I could hear like he was just telling a story through the music, and it blew my mind. Like if you listen to it all the way through, you realize that like, all of a sudden you're hearing, like a marching band walking by his open living room window, and he's like written that he's like, oh, there they are. Well, I might as well just weave that in. And then there's like moments that feel really nostalgic and moments that feel really ecstatic. And, I don't know. I think it taught me that orchestral music could be playful and really just like an incredible story and not just a display of virtuosity, which is sort of how I was thinking about it before in a way. Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. No, I mean, that makes a lot of sense. That's one of the things that I do like, because this piece is it's like an hour or something. I don't know, however long it is, but it covers so much. Like you said, I mean, it tells a story, and it's very visual in a weird way. Like I feel like there's so many moments you can you hear it, but you can see it. And like the marching band thing is such a perfect example, because that's what an amazing thing. Like, I don't know. I love that so much.
Right. And I also reference this piece a lot in my synthesis classes.
That's awesome.
Because I from an orchestration level, I think he might be one of the best orchestrators ever. I mean, that's a big statement, but just the way he's handling color and timbre and spectral density, it's phenomenal. And the way that melodies pass from one instrument to another, and there's like depth in the composition. So it's not just like, we've got sounds up high and sounds down low. He's playing with like, sounds up front, like foreground and background, and they switch, they turn on a dime. Like the cello section will be playing the melody, and then all of a sudden, somehow, without you even noticing, the melody's in the French horns and the cello is just playing this little like pitter patter in the background. So whenever a student who's working with electronics comes to me and says like, hey, I want to get really good at arranging or orchestrating, or like, how do I make a composition? I'm like, we got to go listen to this and talk about this, because if you can wrap your head around how he's like moving sound around in this big orchestra, it's not so different.
Yeah.
Right? Like, why is it that the oboe cuts, like one single oboe cuts and carries that melody so beautifully? It's because of its, timbre and its dynamic profile and all of these things against all the other sounds. Like, we can do that as electronic musicians. So Wow, I just gushed a lot, but
That's awesome. No, that's hey, you got me. I'm like, dang, okay. I need to...
Yeah, so it's like listening to it from that lens, like,
yeah,
appreciating it. It's a great piece of music for what it is, but it can also be, a great way of improving our sound design, I think.
I'm gonna go listen to this like after this again with like a whole new ear. This is fantastic. I love it. All right, what's the song you used to love but now doesn't really do it for you?
I had two answers for this one. One was really silly. I used to love as a kid. I used to love the Bare Naked Ladies. I'm Canadian, so a lot of my answers are like Canadian groups. You probably noticed. I used to love them, and I don't dislike them now. But I did listen back the other day. I was like trying to introduce one of my friends to. I live in the U.S. now, so there's a lot of my interactions with people are like, "Wait, you don't know about the Tragically Hip?" or "Wait, you don't know about like Let Me Play It." And this time I was kind of like, "Oh, yeah, it was cool. I promise, it was cool." But also, if I could throw another one in there, speaking about the classical music stuff, I used to like idolize the Haydn trumpet concerto. Like it was like the best thing since sliced bread. And it was just such a big part of my early training. Everyone like coveted that piece of music. Everyone had to play it. And it was like a milestone thing for you. And if you could play it well, then you were like in a different kind of class of trumpet player. And it was a big deal, and it was so stressful. And I remember the day in my undergrad when I realized, like, why does this matter so much? Like, why is this the thing that we all have to do? And I realized kind of like, I don't think I want to play it. Why am I spending so many months playing the same thing when I could be like, playing other music by composers who are like alive maybe and stuff. And so that one was a really big turning point for me personally as a musician, because I remember having to go into my trumpet teacher in my lesson and basically kind of say, okay, I don't think I want to do this. Like, can we still hang?
How did that go?
He was actually open to it. Like, I think he was kind of like, well, it was a bit of a, well, you've got some degree requirements to fulfill. And also like, okay, like I can't stop you,
Right.
What do you want to do? So he wasn't like, unsupportive, but it was a big moment for me. Because I also realized, I was like, everyone else cares so much about it. Is there something wrong with me that I don't want to play this trumpet concerto?
Right. Yeah. Oh, that's a feeling I know. Well, like, why is everybody obsessed with this one thing and I can't? Yeah.
But anyway.
Yeah. Well, what's a song that some group of people, some person, I don't know, people hate it. You don't care. You love it. This one shocked me.
Really?
I can't believe people. I'm like, who are these people? Who
hate it, you mean? I don't know. I think hate's such a strong, I couldn't really come up with anything that I think people like hate, but yeah. So there's this amazing pioneer in electronic musician, tape musician named Marie Pade, who made a piece called Symphony Magnétophonique in like the 50s. And I think it is incredible. It's like a story. It's basically like the sounds she could hear out of her bedroom window while she was like lying ill.
Yeah. Like, speaking of telling a story, like with sound.
Yeah. And oddly enough, I think I like it for very similar reasons as like Mahler 5. I think there's like a really similar thing happening there. They sound entirely different. This piece is all made up of like sampled, quote unquote, real world sounds, like footsteps and children laughing and a teapot or a kettle whistling and all of this. And I think it's funny. There's a lot of humor and it's just amazing. But I teach a lot, and I always introduce this piece to my students early on. And the number one reaction is like, what the hell is this? What is happening? I hate this. I don't understand it. I don't know how to hear it. Where's the beat? Where's the melody? Like, why are there no notes?
Right. Yeah. I can definitely, I can see, like, I I think I first heard her. It must have been like 2010, 9. There was a 2 CD compilation that came out of early Danish electronic music. I think it was called Pioneers, actually. And I honestly don't remember who else is on it, but I remember she had maybe 2 pieces on it. I don't think this is one of, but it just stopped me in my tracks. I was like, oh my God, why? And it was one of those moments of like, I'm like, why is this not a person who is spoken about in the like sort of pantheon of, and there's a lot of reasons, because she was a woman, that doesn't help. But like I feel like, and this is like, and then I heard this piece later, and I like, when it comes to like, I don't know, like sound, like music concrete or like sound design, all those, like, this is everything I love, but done in a way that I'd never heard.
Right. I think it's just in this scenario, I don't know how, like, there's a lot of ways to answer your question about what's a song people hate, but I think in this case, it's not so much about hate, but it's like, it's about, I think every time I show it to someone, they're a little stretched with their definition of what music is. And that's why I show it to people. Yes. That's my whole point. And like what we're not familiar with, sometimes we can just immediately say like, I don't like that, right? If we don't have the vocabulary to say, oh, I hear this, or, oh, she's doing this with these sounds. Like if we don't understand that, then it's easy sometimes to just jump to like, not for me.
Yeah.
So I think it's a really, but to quote someone else who I really admire in this space, which is Pauline Oliveros, who I didn't otherwise mention in my answers, but is worth a shout out at every opportunity. She would say, something along the lines of like, whenever I come across something that I'm unfamiliar with or a sound that I don't like, I sit with it and I get to know it and I try to understand like everything about it. And I just think that's such a beautiful lesson for
Agreed.
being a human.
That's like, so like one of the very first episodes of the show I did was with Eric Mingus, and he was telling a story about his dad being, of course, Charles Mingus. And he was saying one of the things his dad taught him was that any piece of music or anything, no matter how much you don't like it, find one thing about it.
Right.
You can always find one thing that you can like appreciate. And it's like, and he was talking about how that's like been a lesson through his life and something. And I was like, yeah, that is so, because we all do that. Like there's so many things that I hear. I'm like, oh God, no, this isn't. But I'm like, I've reached this point in my life where when I hear something that, and I have like a really adverse reaction to it, that makes me, I'm like, that gets me kind of weirdly excited. I'm like, ooh.
Yeah, because it's like doing something, right? Like it's like, I think a strong reaction is valid in either direction because it's making you feel some kind of way. Yeah. I don't think listening to music always needs to be about, feeling happy. Like those are options, but like sometimes I like listening to music on purpose that makes me kind of, cringe a little and feel a little bit like, because it's fascinating, right? It's just like looking at, art that's not always beautiful to look at. Sometimes it's confronting and sometimes it's like, damn, that's really dark and depressing, but like, wow, I'm just going to stay here for a minute and grapple with that. I think that's totally valid.
I think that's really cool that you like, you teach this early on in your, I think that is, I mean, and I'm sure I can imagine just like that would get me like, and pushing people to like think about why you don't like something. I mean, I did this seminar thing in the fall where I won't get into the depths of it, but I taught 1 week, and it was, my whole thing was like sound and like the sound of spaces and just talking to people about listening to things that you don't want to hear. Like there's this great Hildegard Westerkamp quote where she's talking about like in times of like crisis, like the sounds that we don't want to hear are the sounds we need to be paying attention to the most. And I think about that all the time, especially like we're in a, fairly fraught time. And like, but pushing people to think about like, why don't you want to hear this? Or why don't you like this? Yeah. And what can you take away from that? What can you,
That's
and
so
it's like, you don't even have to learn to like it, but just like figuring out why, or like you learn something about yourself.
Exactly. That's exactly right. Yeah. My agenda is not to like, get my students to be like, I love tape music. It's
Right.
about learning to, exactly, just to listen and communicate what about it they do like or don't like, especially because they're music students, right? So
Yeah.
they're learning how to make their own music. And so if they can identify like what they don't like, they've moved
Yeah.
a little closer to their own sensibility, what they do like, and that's a
Totally.
win.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that. Well, that feels like is a great segue here. That feels like a very romantic idea to me. Like learning.
Oh.
But what is the most romantic song? Do you think of yourself as romantic?
Geez, I've never been asked that question before. I don't know.
You don't
This
have
one's
to have an
hard
answer.
too. I mean, I love all kinds. So there's like, I think there's like, I don't know if it's like overt romantic. Like there's like the obvious romantic answers, like a lot of the old, for me anyway, like How Deep is the Ocean and like these kind of old songs that I do think of as, I don't know if I would think of them as necessarily romantic, capital R, roses and Hollywood romance, but like meaningful, deeply meaningful, because you know I can remember my grandmother listening to them and my great grandmother, and it's just there's so much history with these simple refrains and these melodies, and like to me that's a kind of almost like that nostalgia and that like passing down in generations of nice little moments is sort of like a romantic thing. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Totally.
Okay.
So what was your pick for that? Because what you just described and what you picked feel like they go hand in hand.
Oh, I picked The Very Thought of You.
What a song.
It's so sweet. I love it.
Yeah. Do you have a favorite version? There's a lot of great ones.
Oh man. There's is there Ella Fitzgerald has a version, right? That I think I
think she does. I'm sure she does. Billie Holiday has like she has a great version. I feel like the Nat King Cole version is the one my grandma was always listening to. That's
the one that was the Nat King Cole version. My grandmother was a big Nat King Cole.
Same.
Man.
Yeah.
And my grandfather would sing it sometimes, but so there's a lot there.
Yeah.
It's more for me I love all the different versions. I think that's like a really special way of it, like continuing to kind of live and evolve. But it's more just the song itself and like hearing it in all these different voices that I think I find really meaningful. So
and I love the mere idea of you is such a what a like simple, beautiful, perfect lyric.
Yeah, it is. It really is.
Okay.
So wholesome.
It is. It's like, it just makes me smile. Okay. What's the song that changed your perspective on an artist, either for better or for worse?
Ooh, this one's cool. I had a million answers for this one too. You should have seen my original list. Oh man, we could do a whole thing just on
like a whole show.
Easy. There's so many, and it's hard because I was like, there's like all these things I want to shout out so that people can go listen to them too.
Sure.
But the one that really struck me was, so I used to listen to a lot of Wynton Marsalis. Again, young trumpet player, Wynton Marsalis. I mean, one of the greatest trumpet players. Like, I listened to a lot of him play. And all I knew was like he did a lot of jazz standards that were amazing, but like straight ahead stuff.
Right.
And then he did a lot of the classical stuff. Speaking of the Haydn Trumpet Concerto, right? And then many, many years into knowing that he was an artist, I heard his record Blood on the Fields. I didn't really actually know he was a composer, to be honest, because I was just so focused on the trumpet performance aspect.
Right.
I wasn't a composition student, so I never really learned about that side. And it blew my mind.
It's
wild. It's so good.
It is unbelievable. It's like this. It's like so like monumental is the word, because it's, I mean, in the size of it, because it's like what, almost 4 hours long or something, the whole thing, or it's so big, but God, it is. Yeah. It's incredible.
And I just, I'd never really heard like the way that he was using brass in that in that piece is not like always perfect and pristine. Like sometimes it's aggressive and like there's a lot of like brass being used as like textural elements and a lot of weird angular rhythms and harmonies. And he's like slipping kind of seamlessly between more traditional kind of music that references something more familiar, and then all the way swinging to something that is like very bizarre and grating. And I just love that. But the first time I heard it, I was like, what is this? I've never heard anything like this before. And it was definitely a floodgates moment for me.
That's awesome. Yeah.
It's very cool.
I didn't, apparently it's the first time a jazz composition won the Pulitzer Prize. Learned that while I was preparing for this.
I did
thought
not
it was
know that.
cool. Yeah. Which, you know, hey. Okay. What is, this is good. All right. Lyrics. Are lyrics a thing you pay a lot of attention to? Are you a big lyrics person?
Not really. I mean, I don't listen to a lot of music with lyrics.
Right.
Like I do sometimes, but I could easily listen to a song with lyrics probably 50 times and like pay and tell you everything about the sound design or the what the drums are doing and then be like, oh right, there are words too. Now the exception to that, I think, is these songs we've been talking about earlier, like things like The Very Thought of You, where it really is about that like simple, spacious kind of,
So that being said, what are your favorite lyrics?
Okay, so I don't know, this is like a cheating answer, but when I saw this question, the first thing that came to my mind is Robert Ashley's opera Improvement. Are you familiar with this?
Yeah. And it's such a good shout because it is.
It's so good. Well, it's
great.
So like the lyric. Well, they're not really lyric. The text, the libretto, whatever you want to call it, is good. It's really clever, but it's more for me about the way it's treated. Like the voices in this piece are so meticulous and so intentional, and every little detail is like planned in such a clever way.
Yes.
And it's funny.
I love, like, I feel like this is such a hard thing to do. I don't know. I couldn't even begin to know how to do something like this, but it feels like you said, it's like so precise and so meticulous, but it doesn't feel like overwrought, or like it feels there's almost it doesn't feel like that. Like, I don't know how it's, I think that's a really good.
Yeah. That's my
answer. Have you heard a couple years ago, Ben Vida's The Beat My Head Hit record that he did?
Oh, no, I haven't.
If you like, you should check it out. If anybody, cause it's all like, it's vocal stuff, like, and it's very like repeating phrases and like and it's very meticulous and it's one of my favorite records of the last few years. And he has, I can't remember, is he working with not Wild Up? It's one of the God, I can't remember. It's not Bang on a Can. It's one of the East Coast ones. Anyway, I can't think of who it is.
Okay.
One of those like groups. Anyway, whenever I heard it, it reminded me of this in a way. And and you also said like anything by Joni Mitchell, which is obviously the right. Yeah. I think everybody needs to like listen to and pay attention to the way Joni Mitchell writes songs, because it will make you a better writer.
Everything about it. And again, with her, it's not just the words, it's the way that she's setting the words. And like, gosh, like, I mean, she's just phenomenal, but like, I don't know. Yeah. I think with both of these people, even though they're very, very different, it's like the words don't seem to just be, what am I trying to say here? It's like the words they're definitely not an afterthought. And the way that they're set to the music is also not an afterthought. It's like everything was conceived of kind of together at the same time, if that makes sense. There isn't one that's taking priority. It's not like melody and then lyrics, or lyrics and then melody. It just feels kind of like this whole cohesive world that's been created. And that's hard to do.
It's really hard to do. Yeah. I mean, I mean, that's hard to do even without words.
Yeah. It's true.
Add that in.
It's very true.
So yeah, what is the song that you have or can listen to the most?
So I think, remember that Nicholas Payton, Doc Cheatham record that I mentioned earlier?
Uh-huh.
That one I have definitely, it's not a song though. It's an album.
Oh.
I think for me, a lot of my musical like references in life have more been about entire albums and not so much about songs.
Oh, I'm the same way. I'm an album guy, but like, and whenever I was developing this podcast, I was thinking of that. I was like, but that would get too, like, if I just talked about albums, I don't know. It felt like it would get too
totally.
much. And I also liked the challenge because, like, I don't think of songs as much, but
it is challenging. But so that record I listened to more times than I think anything else in the world, and it was like it framed a big part of my
I'm excited
childhood.
to listen to. I'm excited to go listen to this record.
It's funny because it's not like, so now it just was the right time, the right thing at the right time for me. Like, it's a very wholesome record. It's like got some really cutesy songs and some like sweet songs. It's not necessarily what I would put on rotation nonstop today.
Right.
Which is interesting how things change.
Yeah.
But, like as a young trumpet player, kind of feeling stifled in the classical music world, I just heard this record of these two guys having a great time playing trumpet and singing at the same time. And I was like, what? You can do both? That's so cool. Oh my God. And they seemed like they were really having fun. And I think that I liked that a lot from that record.
That's awesome.
Yeah. But yeah.
And what's the one that, so that's the one you have listened to most, but you have another one what can?
Yeah, I'll give you another one because it's so good. Jasmine, do you know this record?
I'm not super familiar with it. Like, I love Keith Jarrett and I love Charlie Hayden. I don't know how I don't know this record, but
it's so good.
This was, this was just wonderful.
Did you? Yeah. Yeah. It's just good from top to toe. Everything about it is so good. And this one, I feel like I could easily put on. It could be on every day, and it would take me an awfully long time to, want to move on because there's just so much there. It's so simple. It's just
That's the thing that really struck me is how it's like it's piano and bass, and then you can hear their voices too a little bit, but like it sounds so simple, but there's so much, and they do so much with it.
Yeah, yeah. It like sounds like they're just right there next to you in their living room, just sitting down and playing, and nothing shiny. It just feels very like authentic and like.
What a dream that would be, just to be sitting there and Keith Jarrett and Charlie kind of show up playing.
Yeah, and the fact that you can hear, that their voice, like that makes it all the more better to me because it's like it's not mic'd up. They're not mic'd as vocalists. You can just hear Keith Jarrett doing the thing and humming along, and it's just so good.
Yeah, I think like that part of it adds to that intimacy and it makes it just feel like more. I don't know. I had the word and I lost it, but it's so much more captivating. Like you feel so they're like, it's just like, they're just in the moment, just can't help it. And it's great. Yeah. Well, what's the song that you most recently fell in love with?
Face Shopping by SOPHIE. This is the coolest song in the world.
Dude. Sophie
is just
this is like 7 years old and no one's caught up with this yet.
So freaking good. So good. Oh my God. And like the video is amazing too. I don't know if you've seen the video, but it's so good. I think I listened to it a few times and loved it before I realized that the bass, the bass, the like really kind of gnarly, gritty bass, that's text.
Oh, really?
You realize that? Yeah.
No.
It's like really pitched down, distorted text.
That's so cool.
So if you watch the video, the text flashes on screen. And if you listen to the bass, the like kind of bass stuff, sorry, that was very badly done. Just like that. And you listen and you watch the words, you'll realize it's actually spoken. So they've just like sampled someone. I don't know if it's SOPHIE or I don't know how they did it. It's so cool though.
Whoa.
Yeah.
I'm going to, that again, like I'm telling you, no one's going to ever, I feel like SOPHIE's like one of my favorite.
Me too.
Ever. I still can't get over some of like the stuff that she did.
Yeah,
And
it's like so, it's just so good. Like from a sound design perspective, it's like a total playground, and it's like everything is just so, it's like noisy and gritty and beautiful. And then there's like that random, this song in the middle of this song or toward the end, there's just this random like breakaway
right.
with this like vocal part, and it's hilarious and like epic at the same time. Anyway.
Yeah, I mean that's like her. She has had this way of like putting together. It's like all these unexpected like tones and elements,
Yes,
into something, but this so cohesive. And there's always like this. Yeah, there's like this playfulness to it. Like that part you're talking about where it breaks away. It's like she has such a like sense of humor about it.
Yeah,
but it's so good.
and the P on shop.
Oh, I know.
That's like its own little sample right there.
It's like so one of the. Speaking of like favorite sounds, I love that sound.
Oh yeah,
it's like so satisfying.
I agree.
Okay, well, what is the song that means the most to you?
Also, not an easy question. So what I came up with for this is the song "Going Home" on Charlie Hayden's record, on the Liberation Music Orchestra, record. And I do think the song is amazing, but the story behind it, for me, and your question was kind of like not necessarily because of the song itself, but because of like what you associate with it or something like that. So, when I was at CalArts, I had the very unexpected opportunity to work with Charlie right before he passed away, and to basically to take a class with him. But the class was playing in this band that he was putting together to play that record at a concert.
Oh, wow.
And I was like fresh at CalArts, fresh into my master's degree. I was coming out of this very strict classical music training. I was wondering if I should probably quit music altogether. I was just in a weird place with my music and my life.
Yeah.
A lot of people are when they're finishing their undergrad degree in music.
Right.
And I ended up in that band because I was a trumpet player who could read music, and they just needed someone to sit in the chair and like fill the spot.
Wow.
So I was sitting there playing the parts, and the other trumpet player, who was definitely a much better improviser and trained in like jazz vocabulary, was the one doing all the solos. Mm-hmm. But I realized as the semester progressed that like, you can't really be in Charlie's band if you don't take a solo, because that's not how it works. Like everyone has to have something to say. And so he decided that "Going Home" was going to be my song that I took a solo on. And I think it was partly because it's like, I was really meek and really nervous, and it was a ballad. So there was a little more time for me to think, like the changes weren't going by too fast, that kind of stuff. But
wow,
it like, I tried to kind of get out of it and be like, hey man, I don't know changes. Like I can't do this. Like I don't want to ruin your music. And he basically told me to, he was like, I don't know what the policy is on this podcast about swearing.
You can swear
allowed. He basically was like, I don't give a fuck about the right notes, man. Like I don't want that. I don't care about that. I want to hear your voice. And that was the first time in my life anyone had ever said, I want to hear your voice as a musician so directly. Wow. And then he turned to the rest of the band and he was like, now listen, she's quiet. Because I was scared. I came out of my shell eventually, but he was like, she's quiet. So if what she wants to say is quiet, y'all need to be quiet and support her. Like, don't overpower her. And they all like responded and came down and played really quietly and softly and supported me as I like fumbled my way through the world's worst solo on "Going Home." And so, it wasn't like, it was super, badly done in terms of like execution, but it was life-changing. It was a life-changing moment.
Incredible. What a story. What's great is like one of my notes here is like, this song to me feels like a warm embrace.
Yeah.
And just like with that story, it's like, it'll perfect.
Yeah. And so, I mean, I can't listen to it without all of that wrapped up into it. It was like such a permission slip and a generous thing for him to do. He could have been like impatient with me and been like, no, let's let the real, quote unquote, real trumpet player take the solo.
Right.
But he's like, no, I'm going to insist that you do this. And now, here's the crazy thing. Like now, I wish I could tell him this now, but I can't, sadly. But like improvising is my absolute favorite thing. Like I had never improvised a day in my life before that. I was convinced I couldn't do it. You know, I sucked at that moment, but it like opened this new world for me. And now, you know, however many years later, 10 years later, 15, I don't remember what it's time. I'm now like, that is what I do. I improvise. And it's such a gift that I got from him. So
amazing.
Very grateful.
God, what a story. Well, this part of us to just end it right there, but I'm going to ask the last question because that's like, wow. What's your favorite song?
Yeah, this question. What's your favorite song? No, do you have a favorite song? Do people?
My go-to answer for this usually is A Rainbow in Curved Air, just because like that's probably also the one that means most to me because like I heard it when I was like 17 or 18 and it completely cracked open my head because I'd never heard anything like that before, and
that's nice.
And so I still kind of go there, but it's hard.
Okay, I have categories of answers.
Okay, totally fair. Hey, totally. Again, there's not any rules here. It's like, you know, this is not.
And like, so, I just thought of like 4 others, but I'm going to try to resist it. Okay. So like my favorite, as a performer, as an improviser, as a music maker, like my favorite sound, it's a sound, not song, is like one that surprises me that I've, you know, never heard before, or one that's like, oh my God, I didn't plan that. Like I love those moments. And the best part about it is not just making the sound, but getting to experience it and hear it with other people in real time. Like I love that as an improviser. Yeah. If I can go somewhere in a performance where I'm making a sound on my trumpet or on my synth that I've never made before, and I'm not entirely sure how it's happening, and we all get to enjoy that together, that is like the definition of a great day.
Yes, absolutely.
So that's the first answer.
Yes.
And I'm not trying to say like my favorite song is my own song, but that's not what I mean. It's more about the discovery of sound. I think recently, for the last year or so, I've been listening to this. Also, this is another old tape music or like electronic piece.
One of the best. So
good. Bernard Parmegiani. And it's like, let's see if I can actually say it. De Natura Sonorum. This blows my mind every time I listen to it. It's also a long one, but like, it's so good. It doesn't feel long. No. It's amazing. Again, for a lot of the same reasons why I think like the Mahler 5 is so great. Like orchestration, it's totally different sounds. Obviously, it's not classical instruments, but the use of space, the use of silence, like the depth of sound, the way that sounds transition from one to another. Oh my God, it's so good.
Yeah, he is so good. Like the way he gives everything its space.
Yeah,
is. Like he is so good at that, and there's like this is it tells a story. There's like so much going on, but it never feels cluttered.
Yeah,
and it's also it's also like really surprisingly musical. Like it's very musical. I think. I don't know, man. I love Parmegiani. I think he's
so good,
a genius.
Yeah,
I mean that's not a hot take or anything. I think everybody kind of feels that way, but anyway.
Well, I didn't really know about him until, I mean, it's not that recent, but he wasn't really oddly enough, in a lot of my early like introduction to, you know, electronic music and things like that. So I was thrilled to discover his work.
There's a lot out there.
Yeah.
He was very prolific too.
Yeah. And then, okay, another category for me. So Superman, or basically anything by Laurie Anderson. Laurie Anderson is like one of the coolest people on the planet.
Yeah.
In my humble opinion.
Ever live. Oh.
So I had a lot of trouble too, because favorite song or like impactful artist or album. Like all of these things seem so similar to me. But when I first heard "Oh Superman," my whole world flipped upside down. And like, it's not just the song, but the video, like seeing her being such a badass. She's so confident. She's so like, she's just so, oh man, as like a young woman studying music and being like, can I be bold? Can I do, it was like, this is so cool. I just want to watch this over and over again.
Like literally one of the coolest people to ever walk the face of the earth.
Yeah, I agree.
And I was thinking about that. I was listening to this again yesterday, and it shocked me that this is like thinking about it. This is 40 years old.
Mm-hmm.
Like how it still sounds so like contemporary and
I love just speaking because humor has kind of been a thing throughout this whole conversation. Like obviously that song's like intense, but there's also this tongue in cheek humor, and I think she does that so well when she's like, "Hello, is anybody home?" Or like, anyway, I could go on forever, but it's so good.
It's so good.
Yeah. Big fan. And then the last thing I wrote, and I have like at least 500 more, but the last one that I wrote was in the theme of these like classic old kind of jazz tunes, Louis Armstrong and his song, What a Wonderful World. And it's like so maybe corny. Maybe some people think it's corny. I'm not sure, but I think it's so good. I think listening to it.
Yeah, I think a case can be made that this is like objectively the greatest song of all time.
Yeah.
Like it's that. Yeah. Whenever my daughter was born, one of our friends gave us this, like it's like this little, board book, kids book that was like just illustrations in the lyrics to this song. And I would read it to her, and I can't, like, I'm doing it. Like, when I think about it, I get so emotional. Like, I read it to her as a baby, and like, I would just lose it. Like, could not keep it together. And I always loved this song, but now it has a whole other meaning.
Yeah. And I love, again, as a trumpet player, hearing him, I was like, dang, like, this sounds crazy. Like, your trumpet playing sounds wild, and it's not perfectly round and resonant and all the things that I was told are the only right way to play trumpet. Like it's like all over the place and like a laser at times and like wobbly and like your voice sounds, speaking of like a warm hug, it just sounds like, and there's just something about, and then the lyrics, like you said, are so perfectly wholesome and human and like, so good. That's probably the song I've listened to the most in my entire life, actually, come to think of it. I think I know every nook and cranny of
gosh, that would be up there for me too. And it's another one. It's like you said, I don't know if it's corny. It's a song I will never get sick of. Like,
no.
Ever.
Yeah.
I don't know how you could.
It's beautiful.
Well, there we go. We made it through.
Wow.
That was fun. So, okay. Album Accidental Ornithology, managed to say that every time, basically, is out. Basically, when this comes out, it'll be out on Infrequent Seams with Vinny Golia, the great Vinny Golia, and your next session of Learning Sound and Synthesis starts
in a couple weeks. Yep.
What's the electroacoustic immersion program? I didn't even. That's another.
Yeah, that's
thing?
that's a little. Yes, it is. Yeah, typically that's like after people go through. It's not required that you go through Learning Sound and Synthesis first if you already have an established, practice. But that program is a very, very intensive mentorship program, and it's more focused on finishing music and developing a creative workflow, and it's really focused on like creative feedback, giving and receiving creative feedback, and kind of long discussions about, who you are as an artist, what direction you're going. It's like the deep work. So it's not so much technique focused, how to in terms of synths and stuff, but more creative development.
All right.
Yeah, it's really fun. I mean, it's one of my favorite things to teach.
Yeah, I bet. That sounds awesome. Well, I will put links to all that in the show notes. And Sarah, thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Once again, thank you to Sarah Belle Reid for just getting into it. I think we had a really good time. As a reminder, her album Accidental Ornithology with Vinny Golia is out now on Infrequent Seams, and you can listen to all her picks, links to all that stuff in the show notes, as well as to her website, which has information on her learning sound and synthesis course. You'd think I would have an easier time saying the word synthesis because it's something I talk about all the time, but it trips me up a lot. Also, she's got the electroacoustic immersion program. She got a lot of different things. And there's just a lot of resources, like free resources on her website. She has like a free basic intro course, which I found really helpful back when I was getting into modular synthesis. Yeah, go check out all the stuff Sarah's doing because it rules. For me, thank you again for listening. If you enjoy the show, please leave a rating and review wherever you listen to podcasts because that shit really helps. And you can support the cause ongoing for as little as $3 a month at foxydigitalis.com. No. Well, you can go, actually, foxydigitalis.com doesn't exist. At patreon.com/foxydigitalis. You can check out some of my stuff at thejewelgarden.bandcamp.com and just all those things. All that support goes to keeping this and keeping the site going. Thank you to everybody who has signed up. Hey, if that's not for you, just put a couple of those bucks towards getting a copy of Accidental Ornithology. And, you'll still be having a good time. All right, that's it. Until next time, keep on listening to whatever the hell you want.